Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for coming to our little studio at Cisilion. Today's topic of our conversation is modern workplace. I'm Denis Kayes. I'm looking after a team of solution architects at Cisilion, responsible for infrastructure and security. And today with me, I have two esteemed colleagues of mine, which I would like to introduce themselves. Craig, let's start with you, please.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Craig Tranter, working at Cisco. Been in our experience center for the last 9 years and recently moved into the partner org as a solution specialist. So happily supporting all of our partners in everything they're doing, but also had a small part to play in the redesign of a lot of our office locations. So hopefully I might know a thing or two about it today. We'll see.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the invite today. I'm Mark Lofthouse. I'm one of the Microsoft Solutions Architects here at Cisilion. Been doing Microsoft technologies for about 25 years, so I've seen everything from what we now class as legacy on-premise solutions to Microsoft 365, cloud and AI.
Perfect. Thank you. And without further ado, as I mentioned, topic of today's conversation is modern workplace. It becomes quite, again, topical nowadays because we went through the pandemic. We all as organizations faced different challenges during that period of time, and many organizations had to transform their practice, how to approach to modern workplace during that period. We will probably start with definitions of modern workplace and what it means for different organizations, whether it's from the perspective of vendors like Cisco and Microsoft. But in general, my view is that modern workplace is characterized by hybrid work, digital collaboration, and robust security. And all these components become crucial for organizations to thrive nowadays. I'm more than sure that companies like Cisco Systems and Microsoft, who both champion actually the transformation to modern workplace for many years already, they all argue that enabling employees to work securely from anywhere with seamless collaboration tools drives high productivity. It helps to retain better talent and bring greater innovation. But it's not coming without, obviously, the challenges. And in this podcast, I think we will try to explore how each organization defines and promotes the modern workplace, what key technology solutions are offered by Microsoft and Cisco Systems, from collaboration platform to cloud infrastructure and security, and the strategic benefits potentially organizations adopting modern way of working can claim. So if you don't mind, Craig, probably you can start and tell us a bit about what Cisco view is about modern workplace.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting when we say workplaces, because a workplace is anywhere where you're going to connect and collaborate, serve customers. So whilst today I'll probably talk mostly about a traditional office environment, it could be hospitals, it could be retail stores, it could be stadiums, it could be the coffee shop or your house, right? So workplaces are really anywhere that enable you to work collaboratively with others, I think. But Cisco has been working for a number of years to define how their offices are built. So it's been a long journey, but they have different classifications internally with the types of offices that we have. So there'll be experience centers, which are mostly focused on customers, partners coming in to experience the technology. There'll be customer showcases where they may not have a dedicated demo team, but our offices around the corner from you guys is where we invite customers in to see how we live and breathe our work day in, day out. And then we'll have our more engineering side of things. So different locations for different purposes, but all with the same kind of foundational design behind them to make sure that everyone likes where they work, which is important, I think.
Great. And from your perspective, Mark, what would you say?
Yeah, it's very similar to what Craig mentioned, really. We, up until the pandemic, like mentioned, we have this theory that everybody went to work and sat at the same desk, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. That obviously changed things where people work from home full time, and now we've got that hybrid workplace where effectively you can work from anywhere, but it's important that tool works from anywhere. So you've got to be able to if you're in a coffee shop, you can make that call. It works. You can communicate. You can see your colleagues. If you go into the office, you get the same experience or a similar experience to what you were if you're working from home. So it doesn't matter where you are, but the technology has to work to make things happen. So end users still have to be productive regardless of where they are, and the same level of productivity regardless of where they are. So Microsoft's got a long track record of providing tools. We're on Teams now, but we had Skype previously. We had OCS, if we go back to those days, of providing good collaboration tools that worked across organizations.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Craig, you mentioned that particularly focus of your conversation right now is around buildings. Obviously, it's not just buildings. As you rightly mentioned, modern working, ultimately, it's how we work rather than where we work. Nevertheless, it all leads towards technology and tooling potentially provided by Cisco systems in order to enable the employees to be effective and productive in this environment. What can you tell us about what Cisco proposition is in this area?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you think about networks, right, nothing happens without connectivity. So that's the basis of everything. And if you think back to early 2000s, we're looking at providing data, providing voice capabilities. Roll on to a few years later, video is becoming very prominent. Video collaboration, video meetings, video devices, whether it's on your own laptops or whether it's on our video collaboration endpoints, right? Now we're more into using what the network provides as the foundation and building on top of that for more enhanced experiences and better use cases. So looking at things like the data we get back from the network, the IoT sensors, the cameras, the occupancy, the space utilization, the power automation, all of these different things are built on top of that foundation of the network, because without that, nothing's connected and nothing would work. So it's interesting to see how the network is the basis of everything. And then we can just keep adding things and more things and more things on top of that to provide a much better experience overall, both from the users who are in the office, employees, customers, whoever it may be, but also from the management side of things, the real estate, the HR teams, like all the different groups of people that traditionally might not have spoken about the technology that's being used, but now enables a lot of rich data and a lot of insight into how our buildings are actually being used as well.
You mentioned collaboration tooling, obviously, and Cisco WebEx portfolio is quite prominent in Cisco kind of portfolio itself. In terms of other technology, as we consider that working is enabling people, modern working is enabling people working from anywhere, is security playing a big part in that solution as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, essentially, if we want to connect, it has to be secure. If it's not secure, it shouldn't be connected. It's as simple as that. So our concept of a universal zero trust network access, I should be able to join from home or from the office or from wherever, but I shouldn't be able to do that if it's not secure. So we have a number of tools in place. It needs to be seamless, because if it causes friction for the end users, typically they find a way around it, right? So our users are often the weak point in the network. So we've got to make it foolproof for them. So we have solutions like Cisco Duo for our multi-factor authentication. We have things like AnyConnect for our VPN service. We have Secure Endpoint, which is scanning all of the files that we download to make sure then there's nothing malicious there. Umbrella, that does a whole host of things. There's so many different tools across the entire Cisco security portfolio. But an end user just knows that they log in once and they get access to the apps that they need access to, and they don't really have to think about it, which is kind of the beauty of it. As long as it's all working, security should be silent, and in the background, you shouldn't even notice it.
Absolutely. The less friction is kind of remove this, as you said, objectives of users trying to overcome the system somehow and circumvent it and do something which they're not supposed to be doing. Mark, on Microsoft side, it everyone knows Microsoft 365. It would be probably silly to assume that someone doesn't know that. But what the entire Microsoft portfolio is encompassing, which helps with the modern working on top of Microsoft 365 or within Microsoft 365 portfolio?
again, similar to what Craig mentioned, the Microsoft 365 suite is designed end to end with security in mind. So it allows collaboration with, the easy sharing of documents, the easy collaboration on documents, easy video calling, whether it's on your laptop, your phone, or in a meeting room at the office, all in a secure fashion, end to end, and as simple as possible for a meeting room. So, the tooling's there, the tooling's accessible, and we've tried to stop end users having challenges when they go where they are. They can just work and do the job they're paid to do, but also deviating into tools they shouldn't be using. Because if you provide anybody with a tool that doesn't work, they'll find another solution. AI has proved that more than anything. If you don't provide secure, controlled AI that does what's required for somebody in their line of work, they will go find a solution that does work for them. And that's not new. We've had it for years. If you didn't provide messaging and communications, they would use the consumer, uncontrolled, unauditable platforms. So the 365 suite provides all those to end users, all knitted together, all with security by design.
Thank you. We touched upon some of the elements of technology. It's not explicit. I understand there are more elements in that, and we maybe expanded more in the further parts of our conversation. But what I wanted also to have a chat and understand the perspective of both organizations to actually the employees' well-being and how this modern workplace should reflect to help employees not just to be to help them to be productive, but productive in an effective way, and in seeing how the, again, environment, tools, and so on can assist organizations and leadership to ensure that the employees are happy employees. Mark, maybe you can start on that one.
Yeah, so, we don't like mentioning it, but going back to the pandemic, we all went and worked from home, and it's proved since how being isolated from your colleagues wasn't healthy. And we've certainly built on that in the last 5-6 years around making sure that we understand around burnout, about downtime, about being able to communicate with your colleagues. And, there's tooling in place now. The Viva Suite provides the ability to provide feedback on your day, and things like virtual commutes where people used to almost let off steam when they're on the train on the way home. They'd talk to their colleagues, they'd go to the coffee shop, things that you didn't do when you were at home for months on end. So the Viva Suite provides the ability to do that. There's tools in Windows now, timers, do not disturb, all those bits and pieces. That means when you need personal time, you can have personal time. Mm-hmm. Hopefully by being more productive outside of that personal time in work time, gives you that space to be able to let off steam, to be able to relax and look after your mental health.
Thank you, Mark. And great, from Cisco perspective, you touched upon building new offices with the new concepts and new technology in mind, which helps to also collect a lot of telemetry, which helps with optimization of the building from kind of technology perspective, but how the buildings and workplaces are adjusting to, again, accommodate the needs of the employees from their well-being perspective.
Yeah, there's a lot of different angles to look at it, and I sort of alluded to it earlier that one of the things that Cisco's done is actually combined a few different groups of people, a few different functions that traditionally may not have worked together. So the real estate team, the facilities team, the IT team, human resources, sustainability officers, suddenly all of these different teams are talking, and it's the technology that's enabling these kind of things. So when we actually build out our offices, we follow a specific design guide. We have a sort of template of what we want to achieve, and that's based around a lot of neurodiversity. So it's a mixture of the technology enabling these things, but also very purposeful design in the offices. Gone are the days of cubicles and rows of desks. As you said before, Mark, before the pandemic, it was sort of thought you come in, you sit at your desk, you do your work, and that's not the case now. The traditional office is gone. We need to earn people's commute. people got used to working from home or working from anywhere. So now if you're getting me to come in when trains are cancelled and I'm having to run around to different stations like today and make my way in, it's got to be a nice place to be. So the specific design of the office, right down to well and LEED standards. So looking at being leaders in energy and environmental design, looking at the health and well-being of employees, that comes down to a lot of design factors in terms of the type of furniture, the type of spaces, the natural sustainable materials that we're using, but then also having the technology there to enable things like automation for the lighting and making sure that we can have control to bring the light up to the right level of brightness compared to how bright it is outside, but still giving users the option to very simply engage with that. So in a lot of our video systems, we'll have things like lighting controls right there on the touch panel, because that's where our users are engaging to do their collaborative meetings. They don't want to be looking around for where's the light switch and how do I control the heating and all of that kind of stuff. It's baked straight into the device where their focus is. So lots of different aspects. And then what we do overall is we take a lot of that data that we're seeing from the wireless, from the cameras, from the video systems, from the sensors, and we optimize it in our Spaces platform to understand how are those spaces being used, where's more popular, where's least popular, what are the busier times of day, how can we better accommodate for those kind of user experiences. So it's really nice to see a mixture of really well thought out design that's based around people, but then the underlying technology that then enables those great experiences.
I completely agree. And as first-hand experience of your new offices, particularly here in London as well, it's very welcoming place to come. As you said, it's very, very warm. It's very kind of appealing to come
I
to
like
the
it.
office. Yeah, I agree. And from that perspective, do you see, if you talk about economics of that, all of that comes to a certain extent at a cost, because it's not traditional way of delivering of facility services and meeting rooms and desks to the workers who are coming on the hot desking. Do you see, as a Cisco, have you done a little bit of analysis and so on, how effective it is also potentially, maybe financially, maybe it even helps organization to save some costs because of the new approach to delivering certain services to the buildings and to the users?
Definitely. I mean, one of the big things that we do is we actually utilize our network infrastructure to power a lot of the devices. So Cisco created PoE a number of years ago, Power over Ethernet. And if anyone comes in to see our offices, you'll hear us talk about PoE constantly. We love it. But it does mean that we've got the network infrastructure there that can provide connectivity, but then also provide power. And with that power being provided, we also provide the automation. So like I mentioned about the controlling of the lights, for example. Now, it might seem like a small thing, but in our New York office that was renovated back in, when was that now? 2022, 2023, I want to say, around about then. It's been open for a number of years now, and they saw a 36% reduction in the amount of energy we're using because we actually had the automation and the data there provided.
But the control ultimately of what,
right,
when
exactly.
to switch on, when to switch off.
Exactly. So even simple things like that, but also we've seen things like our Spaces platform really analyzing the utilization of the space. So we'll be able to pull data from our collaboration video endpoints, from the wireless, from the Meraki cameras and sensors and things like that. And we've had customers before that said, oh, we need another floor to our building. We're always busy. All the meeting rooms are booked. And then we've gone to them, actually, let's take a look at that. Your users are telling you they can never find a meeting room, but actually in the last X amount of time, you've had 10 meeting rooms booked for 10 people, but 2 people turned up. Or you had X number of meeting rooms booked, but no one turned up. So the calendar shows that it's booked, but actually it's not being utilized. So being able to analyze that data and really understand how the space is being used has meant that they said, you know what, we don't actually need another floor. We can just use that 10-person meeting room and break it down into 2 smaller meeting rooms so that it can be more purposeful. In the past, people were looking at things like badge scans. How many people came into the building? Well, if I scan my badge and then let 20 people in after me, the data would suggest there's one person, whereas the network is smarter than that, and it can analyze and normalize the data so we get a realistic view of how many people are in the building at any given time. Let's just say, for argument's sake, a Friday afternoon, no one's around. Okay, well, let's power stuff down. Right the way down to let's power off the Wi-Fi. Why are we providing power to access points if there's no one there consuming the Wi-Fi? Now, if someone comes in, okay, we want to spin it back up again, right?
Absolutely.
But that's what the network provides, is that data and the intelligence and then the automation to provide what we need when we need it. So that's what I quite like about it, is getting down to that data and actually analysing. You said you needed more space. Actually, you don't. You just need a better use of the space you have.
Absolutely. So what it means, with the new technology you're bringing to infrastructure, you're also enabling yourself to gather additional information, which allows you to provide educated decisions and make actions based on the data rather than just a guess. And
I mean, that's what IT is all about, right? It's information technology. Let's make use of it.
Absolutely. And Mark, in recent time, again, after pandemic, we saw some organizations started to claim, we don't believe our employees are innovative enough, collaborative enough, and they need to go back to the offices in order to restore these capabilities for organizations. I wouldn't name the names. Probably people can find them themselves who did the statements. But from Microsoft perspective, how the tooling and kind of technology provided by Microsoft actually enables the people, regardless of where they are, to effectively collaborate?
It's like Craig says, but on a closer footprint, if you like, within 365 is the ability to be able to service who is doing what work and when, and where they're storing that data. So as opposed to, I work in this silo and I work in a different silo, everybody's collaborating together. It's stored in one platform, and the native reports can show you how much is being used, where they're using it. Plus, of course, the pandemic, we keep going back to it because it was the start of all this, but people worked at different times in different time zones. As before, we used to be in the office 9 till 5, and you work 9 till 5. But now, and it ties into the wellbeing thing earlier, my colleague might start a report at 9 o'clock and I might finish it at 5 o'clock, or I'll sit at night because I'm more productive at night. Mm-hmm. So again, there's built-in report services that tell us, people are working, this is what they're producing, and hopefully the end result is more productivity, more profit, more realistic. As we all know, whichever business needs to look at its bottom lines and say, are we still profitable? Mm-hmm. But tying in with what Craig's just said about rooms as well, wherever you work, the worst case scenario is you go into the office for the day. I've got to go in the office and there's nowhere to sit. Mm-hmm. Tooling like Spaces, like Microsoft Places, and there's other ones available, allows to make sure you get a desk. And when you get to that desk, there's extra monitors that you need. There's keyboards, there's mice, the network works. So you're as productive at that desk as you were at home. And that's been a difficult switch for organisations, especially buildings that have been closed or reduced in size, leases expired, things like that, where the office experience is worse than the home experience. At which point, trying to get people to come back and work in an office environment, they're actually less productive. So, you've got to keep, one thing is making sure they're productive when they're in the office, but also give them that incentive to come into the office. I'm guaranteed the desk. I'll see my colleagues. The technology works. I've got multiple screens. The network works. I've got the apps I need. I can speak to my colleagues face to face. All the things that make sure, and it all comes back to hybrid work, no matter where I am, whether I'm in the coffee shop or in the office, I'm as productive. And that's one of the key messages that we're trying to get through to customers, both Cisco and Microsoft at the minute, is the office needs to be as a productive space, if not more productive than what you've been sat on your desk at home.
I think that's what we mean by the whole, you need to earn the commute now, right? People expect more. If I'm coming into an office but I have a better setup at home, why am I bothering? So, Cisco, we're really focused on the collaborative spaces. there's much fewer individual workspaces in the office now. Because if you're just going to sit at a desk and work on an Excel,
Might as well
I can
do
do
it.
that at
There's no
home,
one.
right?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot more video-enabled spaces. There's a lot more collaborative workspaces. There's still some hot desking and there's still some individual touchdown points because sometimes you do need to exit out of that meeting and just get your head down. But the purpose of the office is to collaborate, right? And, Cisco are big Microsoft customers. We use pretty much everything that Microsoft do, from Outlook, SharePoint, all the office environments there. Admittedly, we don't typically use Microsoft Teams, but that's fine. We still work collaboratively with people that do. And that's why for us, all of our video systems are able to call into Teams meetings, to Zoom meetings, to Google meetings. Because, as you say, we keep going back to it. But if the pandemic taught us anything, it's you've got to meet people where they are. And just because we use WebEx doesn't mean that you guys won't prefer Teams and someone else might prefer Zoom. I just want an easy way to collaborate with anyone, whether it's my colleagues in Cisco or anyone outside of Cisco as well. So I know if I go into the office and maybe you guys have set up a call with us and it's on Teams, and then I've got another customer that set up a call and it's on Zoom, I just join in on the video system. I don't have to worry about what platform is behind it, right? So I think getting people into the office is a good thing. It's got to be purposeful to be in there. But when I get in there, I shouldn't struggle to join in to anyone else that's not there as well, right? So it's really interesting to see that easy user experience, regardless of the tools you're using. It just has to work. Otherwise, I might as well stay at home.
Absolutely. And that's very good kind of pointer overall, that despite that Microsoft and Cisco competing in certain areas, but very
We're all
often
good friends.
yeah, but very often solutions from both organizations are very complementary, and they do work together, and they are better together, and they need an ability to integrate through open tools. And as you said, it could be Cisco system solution on the infrastructure, but it uses some applications delivered by Microsoft, who has depth of breadth of the application themselves, while Cisco is very, very have deep expertise in the infrastructure itself and provide this kind of all the base layer needed for driving applications sitting on top of it.
Cisco are never going to create a calendar, right?
100%.
You guys have got that down at Microsoft with Outlook. We're not going to reinvent the wheel there. So we use the Outlook calendars. We have a resource mailbox with a calendar that's linked to all of our video systems, and that is the room calendar. So I know if that room's booked, if it's free. If the room's occupied, the video system will tell me that. We can actually get our video systems to say, well, the room's booked for 5 hours, but no one turned up within the first X amount of time. We could then get the video system to automatically talk to the Outlook calendar and say, go ahead and release that booking, free up the room. All of that stuff is just there. And, it's not rocket science. It's an Outlook calendar and it's an integration with our WebEx platform and just making sure that people know how to use it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And just to echo probably the last statement and sentiment about the productivity and how kind of people feel overall, I believe from different researchers and surveys completed by Cisco and Microsoft, up to 64% people would consider leaving a job if remote work flexibility is taken away, which is quite significant amount. And even more, 73% of employees reported higher productivity when the refined hybrid policies being implemented within organizations, which also quite significant uptake. It comes from both Cisco and Microsoft Work Trend Index, kind of similar statement. Considering kind of moving a little bit forward, we understood where we are right now. There is a development in the how we build new infrastructure, how we build new offices, what data we're trying to obtain from that. We want to make it appealing for the users to come. We are developing new applications which helps them not just to be productive and collaborative, but also understanding how they work, what their work pattern is, how they can manage themselves and manage their well-being as well through the tooling, and seeing that there are less burnouts and so on. If we look forward a little bit and look into 3-5 year trajectory, from your perspective, where you see the new trends are, what new trends are, what is coming to the modern workplace, and where you believe the infrastructure or solutions or applications will start changing, and what it brings or what challenges it brings to the organizations, and maybe how they can overcome it as well?
It would be foolish at this point to ignore AI, because that's going to be the
I
biggest
can't
driver
believe we've
next
got this
5
far
years.
without
Yeah.
mentioning
Without
it.
mentioning it, yes.
Who knows where we're going to be in AI in 5 years, considering what we've moved forward with AI in the last 2 years. Whether we're at the stage of, to use the Microsoft terminology, co-pilots become more pilots. They know what you're expected to do that day. They know how to respond to your emails. They know the jobs that you do, the mundane tasks that you do on a daily basis, and do them for you. And you're essentially doing the monitoring and the supervising of that agent. Similar to meeting rooms, contact centers, I think AI will, lead the way in everything we do. The biggest challenge we're going to have is the security controls on top of that. Making sure that, when we communicate with an AI, that it is the AI we're supposed to be communicating with. And it's only, treating our data privately, securely, and within the confines of the business. So I think, that will be the challenge moving forward. I think the AI race, if you like, agentic AI solutions will grow massively over the next 5 years. The challenge will be keeping in line with them and keeping them in control.
I mean, AI is nothing new, right? AI has been around for a long time, but the way we interact with AI has shifted massively in the last couple of years. But if you think about how people tend to use it, a lot of people still kind of use AI just like a Google search, but it's capable of a lot more than that. So, like you say, the security behind it, the more AI becomes more autonomous and carrying out more complex tasks that's ongoing, there's a couple of things to consider. From an end user point of view, great, we're freed up to do the more intricate work rather than the monotonous tasks, right? But actually the demands on the network are quite extreme. When you consider the way you'd interact with a chatbot, with a search tool, it's a quick peek on the network infrastructure and back down again. But the more these agentic operations happen over time, they're carrying out multiple tasks, well, then the demand on the network stays quite high. So you need to have the right infrastructure there to provide that level of bandwidth, the right speed, the right resource, but then you have to have the security safeguards in there. If these tools are going to be able to access X, Y, and Z, well, we need to make sure we have some guardrails in place. So Cisco have a number of tools like our AI defense solution that will put in those sort of guardrails, make sure that we treat all these agentic operations essentially like we treat any user joining the network. It is an individual at this stage. It should have the right level of network access, the right level of segmentation, the right policy based around it, so that we track it just like I would track me logging in on a laptop and what I have access to. I'm not going to have access to the core building management system, and neither should the AI necessarily. So we've got to have the right level of security in place and the right infrastructure to meet the demands of this heightened use of AI through the network, I think.
Yeah, and of course the other thing is AI doesn't sleep. So where we look at peak periods at the minute of even the old traditional 9 till 5 Monday to Friday, these agents are going to be running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So, how we manage network solutions, connectivity, security is all going to change, because there will be no off-peak periods. These things will be running all the time.
And I mean, hopefully that improves our experience from the end user perspective as well, because tasks are already completed when we start our day.
Absolutely.
So we've got access to that. But also it's going to really enhance the way we manage our networks, right? If there's a problem on the network, AI is going to be there to analyze, troubleshoot. And, Cisco has like 40 plus years of knowledge about how we build networks, right? So we're training our AI models that we use across all of our different solutions so that it can say, hey, here's a problem here. We can see that it's linked to this. Here's a suggested action. Would you like me to action that straight away? The time to resolution for problems on the network is going to be massively reduced because we just have access to the data and the analytics there. So our engineers keep a nice view on it, but they're not spending hours troubleshooting and trying to find where the issue is. The network already knew and it told them, and there's a fix. So for an end user, it's great because they don't notice that there's any problems because they've already been fixed. That's the ideal, right?
100%. And that's interesting statement about security, particularly of AI, I believe, because, and particularly agentic AI, as even recently, I believe, Anthropic released a report of discovering the first autonomous attack framework working across, kind of using the Claude code and MCP capabilities to conduct cyber operations pretty much without direct human involvement and so on, driven by some of the state-driven kind of organizations. And security and ability to control, as you mentioned, Craig, potentially kind of AI defense tooling and some other products are absolutely important in this case. But what I wanted also to probably to address, with all these changes, do you see or do you envisage, or maybe organizations like Cisco and Microsoft already started that, is the new framework and being brought in, or policies brought in, or being brought into organizations in order to guide how in modern workplace users should interact, how they should work? Is there requirements actually define this element of how long or how much you need to work from home or not, as well as what's your behavior and how leveraging of different tooling should happen? Do you see a lot of work or some work getting into this area of compliance, areas of controls and governance?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different aspects to look at. I mean, Mark, you mentioned earlier about getting people back into the office. There's a lot of organizations out there that are kind of starting to mandate, we expect you to be in X number of times a week, right? That's kind of a bit of a draconian way of looking at it, I think. And you mentioned, people actually leaving jobs because of that, if they've got more flexibility elsewhere. But I think you're right, there are going to be some guidelines in, here's the right tools to use. Not everyone's going to want their employees using publicly accessible ChatGPT, for example, right? Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of regulations that individual companies put in place to make sure the right tools are used. But I think that comes down to, again, the policies around the security and the compliance and all of those checks and balances that happen behind the scenes. As we said at the start, though, if there's a tool that's not fit for purpose, end users will find another tool, right? So I think it's going to be a constantly shifting battleground for employers to kind of figure out that minefield of what's a purposeful tool, what should be used, how can we use it safely and securely? Because it's not just about the cybersecurity, it's also about things like health and well-being and that area of it, right? We don't want a chatbot to be able to give us instructions on how to build a destructive weapon or something like that. So all those checks are going on with these AI tools as well, right? You need to make sure that it's actually within your ethics policy. So many different avenues to look at, I think.
Yeah, I think ethics and privacy will be massive when we start to look at what's happening in the written voice now, where AIs can sound and look like me. At that point, we've got to make sure that control that, Otherwise, Matt robbed a bank last week. Could actually happen. Even though it was never there. It wasn't me, it was AI. So as these tools develop, we're going to have to make sure that we've got policy in both, from government policy and corporate policy on how we manage it. How do we make sure that these things don't just run away with the human race, if you like, and effectively just become the dominant being? So I think over 5 years, we didn't even touch on it, but if you look what's happening in the industry now around robotics and how robotics and droids will be along, within a year, 18 months, how does that fit into the shape of things? If we look at networks and connectivity, how does a droid communicate? How do we secure that? There's going to be so much advances in that technology over the next 5 years. We've got a lot to learn.
Absolutely. And I think digital experience becomes a part of it as well because of, as you rightly mentioned, increased capacity needed by the tooling which are coming to play and so on will probably affect the potentially performance and productivity of the organizations as well, and ensuring that we can have visibility and controls over that through digital experience is very, very, very paramount as well. Thank you, gentlemen. Probably final thoughts. What do you think you would like to add on the current topic from your perspective, personal or organization-wise?
I just think it's a very exciting time to be in the industry. You know, we all know we went from peaks and troughs in new technology coming on, but like we just spent the last 10 minutes talking about AI, we're almost on a blank canvas. And we all have to learn again what we could do with these technologies we have available.
Yeah, I think it's just really interesting to see how the sort of people element and the technology elements are coming together. I feel like a lot of the time in the past there was tech and people got frustrated because it didn't work and it didn't do the thing that they needed it to do. But realistically, the network is the foundation of everything, right? If we come into the office and I can't connect, end. That's it, right? You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs tell us that we need Wi-Fi before anything else. That seems to be how it is now. So I think having that network as the foundation, but having access to the data to intelligently analyze it, to make use of those AI tools within the right boundaries and security concerns and everything like that, is the network that really makes everything else work. So seeing how we apply the people element to that, I think is really interesting. So it'll be cool to see how it continues to develop over the next few years, for sure.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And thank you for our listeners. And see you or hear you on the next podcast.